did it. Hi guys. Oh man. Oh man, oh man. So yesterday I went out and I made a little video about the outrage over the mouse. And I knew that I was going to get a little backlash. It wasn't even that. I mean, okay, let's not be too dramatic here. It wasn't that bad. But as always, there are always people who are justifiably frustrated without the game, or with the game, but who also takes their frustration and let it seep into everything in terms of what they comment on. So let's see what then happened then. Because this is man, okay, there's a lot to talk about. There's just a lot to talk about. I'll run you through the timeline first. Because again, you know, we do this in one take. I've thought about this all morning actually, so it's not like I haven't. It's not like I just sat down and was like, oh, let me just talk about without having thought about it at all. No, we have thought about this. Okay, let me run you through the timeline, and I'll add commentary as we go. Okay, so first of all, boom, yesterday they come out and they go, we released a new kind of microtransactions into the store, the Cursor Pack. And the cynics of the world will immediately go, oh no, they're pulling an Activision. They're monetizing everything, Tencent is taking over. They're destroying our beloved game, right? There's a lot of emotion there with wanting to keep the game pure and what we know of it and all that. What isn't shown in this, and this is like a bit of a PR glip, at least on Twitter, and I would say this easily spirals onto places like Reddit. But what people often miss is that because of social media, there's a limited amount of characters, right? And they're trying to sell a product, obviously. But it's not like they're unaware that we've also added a free high contrast cursor to all accounts as an alternative, right? That everyone can access. So it's like, it's right there in the first paragraph, but I think it's in the current landscape, it is important to make sure that you don't give unnecessary ammunition for the people who are not willing to dig just skin deep. Because people are looking for, like, what I was talking about yesterday is that people are looking to be outraged. They're looking to find faults and to find flaws to why everything they experience right now is justified. And then how can we then, you know, pile on and be angry about that? Because then we can further cement our position as being right. And people love being right. And it's not that it's not that we in the community and people within the community are not right when we're frustrated with our performance or other aspects of the game where it has been lacking or there has been faults in recent years. Now fast forward a little bit to one day later. Well, okay, so in the sense of timelines, and this is where it gets kind of funky, they then release some hours later, in the near future, we'll be making improvements to how Pastor utilizes memory. And then people think, oh, we got really outraged, and then this is their response? No. This is a response that they've been working. This is why it gets so difficult, right? Because then you have this thing, and then people will then come in and be like, oh, you're just responding to the cursor outrage, so now you're making like a low effort, I don't know. Oh, was this the one, or is this the... Right, so this is somehow supposed to be the low effort cursor thing, right? And then today, oh, what do we have here? As we were talking about yesterday, is there an actual problem with monetizing some funky cursors? My argument would be no. You don't like them, don't buy them. You can, it's not like your cursor magically disappears if you don't buy them. It's not like they remove the cursor from the game. And on the accessibility part, where they added the high contrast one, my point was, well, let's then talk about it. Make a point out of that. Bring it to GGG. And, you know, stress the point that we really want this kind of thing. Rather than being angry and calling everyone names. And it's not like you can't... It's not like we have to be overly sensitive. But there is a difference between calling someone the literal devil, equating to God knows what, and saying everything is failing and putting everything in very hyperbolic and extreme terms, because it feeds on itself, and then we start believing that everything is going to shit. When we want good communication from GGG, we also need to provide good communication towards them. It's a two-way street here. We communicate, they communicate back. You might wonder, why aren't they communicating as much right now? Well, as we were talking about yesterday, everyone, or not everyone, but there's been so many gotcha moments, and that's the only thing I want to step away from. You know, this like trying to find places where you can out someone, or we can make fun of someone, or you can, you know, this whole meme with, oh, some employee is crying again. Like, if that happened and people repeatedly meme about it and make it rise to the very top of every single thread. Oh, this stupid crybabies over at GGG. Oh, I bet Chris is just coddling them again because they're all crying. Like, if you have to read that every single time you're making improvements and you are trying to have an open discussion about the game, would you want to? I mean, imagine at your work and you're you know, you come to the workplace and one day you're having a really bad day, and that one bad day keeps getting repeated in every single meeting. You wouldn't want that. Like, there are human beings here. So, that aside, they're actually implementing cursors, which is like, we're getting a discussion about what colors we want and all that. Don't be outraged now if they don't give you sliders, because that actually takes more development time, rather than like recoloring some more of these high contrast versions and implementing those. Would some sliders and stuff be good, but it speaks to more of an overall UI decision that kind of goes above a step beyond. So, you know, measured expectation here. As long as we can make sure it's like the game is accessible where it needs to be, then I think we're okay. Then we can talk and communicate whether or not furthermore UI options should be available. I personally think they should be. But there's like how much freedom do you give? Because it does have inverse effects with how people then use those tools in an overly aggressive or non-aggressive way. Anyways. Second thing I want to talk about is the upcoming video memory utilization improvements. And this is another place where I feel like, because people are starting to get a little bit jaded in terms of these improvement updates, manifestos, and all this, because it does sound like they're over explaining things that we already see them happening, and then just someone explaining to us what's happening is not really what we're looking out for. We want to know, why did you allow it to happen? And when can we see it improved? Because otherwise we're going to start assuming, why did you allow this to happen? You know? And do you even have a response, right? So I appreciate the rundown of the issue. But if the issue doesn't get resolved, the rundown kind of doesn't matter. A rundown, I would say, works as a temporary way of, you know, educating and explaining the current conditions and why it's either like easy or not easy to move forward. However, we have played the game without having, where the game seemingly ran better without these super stalls or the things that would like just not load in. Because the game stalling versus the game not loading anything in is equally bad. So it's not an improvement at all, and for some it's even worse than that. You know, a slight stall is something we learn to deal with, a slight stutter, but not being able to see anything loaded in for seconds at a time at the most crucial moment is very you know, it's very bad from a gameplay perspective. So yes, they're talking about, Chris is talking about how they're using a new what's it called? A new graphical API, which is called Vulkan, right? And they've been building on that that new system for a while now. And honestly, Vulkan did have a massive improvement on my system. So now I'm gonna give you some personal anecdotes here. So take them as you want. My game did crash a lot, and I am sure that this is the exact reason is that it was loading too much onto the memory, and then it crashed, and my game would just shut down, which is bad, right? It's annoying that you have to restart the game. So that is an unacceptable result of the Vulkan rendering API. Okay, so they're trying to figure out how do we make that not happen. It's an API and renderer with much better performance. I had better FPS. The game ran smoother. Things loaded in fast, but sometimes I would crash, which is a result of this, right? And that's all fine. But the problem that in recognizing this, it's also that it's hard to then go from that and then also looking at all the times where the game would run fine enough, where there wasn't that much going on. You know, when you're in the town, the town would load way faster and the loading screens would be faster, and other things have been faster in the past before the high load stuff where you would just have dumpstered FPS. So there's this, like, instead of having bad top end performance, we have bad you know, low end. Well, not in terms of like what spec you're on, but in terms of the requirement of like going into a town cannot be as difficult as going through a map blasting with full sextants and delirium and everything, right? And sometimes when you're blasting, it feels like performance is better, but then you go into town, it's this weird dynamic. So it's definitely odd to then be like, oh, but so this is why it's not working. But that, how does this make sense in the I just go to town and these constant load screens and the loading in the first time where there's not really a lot going on? It doesn't really connect. And then there's the, well, surely you must have seen some of this happening before releasing it to the, you know, to the live realm. And then you start getting conflicted messages, you know, when there's been GGG talking about, oh, should we can we allow you to have sliders in the first place? Can we allow you to do this and that and this and that in terms of graphical improvements and alterings of your, you know, your settings and all that, so you can have a better experience? No, we know better. But then texture streaming happens, and then you start thinking, but do you know better? Where did it go wrong? And then this kind of thing, you know, where you over explain what is going on, but the issues are still there, and you allow them to be applied to the player for long durations of time. Why should I believe you? Yeah. In the short term, I would say, following all of this, I do hope that even with silly stuff like cursors, you know, be more upfront with the tools and the things that you're doing to make the game better, accessible. You know, the things that really just make you really just make the GGG stand out as a company that is, you know, that is pushing quality over capital gains. because I still think that overall there are very good sentiments at GGG. They want to push out good quality content, even with this. But this is the problem here, right? They know they can do such a good job. They've done it before. It just takes time, you know, and they want to over deliver. 10x PoE2, everything they say, it's you know, they have this, GGG has this attitude of wanting to over deliver all the time, and I don't think that's gone away. It's just gone a bit astray. So, you know, be upfront. The thing is, I personally think that more of this gives more of this as well, because too much of this negative spiral, you know, it's I just can't see how that can be good. But secondly, here, just to finish it off, as a community, we also need to communicate better. Okay, guys? I'm not in yesterday's video, it's not like I'm trying to speak down. I was getting frustrated that every time there's just the tiniest bit to be upset about, everyone goes to like 110%. Or there's like a segment. And if we feed into that as a community, that becomes the narrative all the time. And all of a sudden, we don't know even why we're angry at things. We just know that we have to make an angry meme at GGG. They're activists in Tencent. They're going to. They're all about capital gains and greed. Chris is on his $3 billion yacht somewhere and just he died again to text streaming. That's really no. They have more profession. They have integrity. Okay, that's all. Constructive criticism when it's due. And don't hold back if you think that but be specific, be concrete, without being an asshole. That's it. I hit 100 yesterday. It was great. And today I'm just gonna chill and start farming, and we're maybe gonna find a build, and we're gonna play PoE. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.